Hello, and welcome to Discovering with Dr. Deb. We're new to podcasting, but I certainly hope this content is helpful to you. Over the course of the next couple seasons, I'll be sharing content about the Enneagram, trauma, and how living in this pandemic has added a lot of trauma to our lives, and how to move on from here. EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing, and how it helps people move through and past their trauma, self-care, and more mental health stuff. We'll be spending the first season looking at the Enneagram and how you can use the Enneagram to learn more about yourself and why you do what you do. Discovering the Enneagram with Dr. Deb is next. Hello, welcome back. We are here. I'm here today with Jason. We're going to refer to him today as our Enneacritic.
Siskel and Ebert. Here I am.
Today we are talking with ones. And they are known as the perfectionist. Sometimes they're called the principled reformer, but they have this super strong internal critic. So Jason's going to be our Enneacritic today. But we're here with Emily and Marcus, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves after we kind of do a little overview. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the ones, and so you know a little about kind of what's going on before we dive into helping or listening to them unpack.
We've kind of done this at the beginning of every episode.
Yeah.
And I think it's helpful just as we dive, because they're going to tell us a whole lot more.
Right. We don't know about ones.
We don't know about ones. I do.
How do you? Oh, you're married, to a one. I wing one.
Okay, there you go. So we know about ones. Give yourself some credit. Okay. So we've been doing this.
Right.
And this is from like Suzanne Stabile's description.
Right.
Okay.
So she says the ones are called the perfectionists because they're seeking perfection in thought and word and deed. We need people who want the best and pay attention to details. So the gift, unfortunately, comes with a burden or a thorn, which is that ones have this super strong internal critic, like I mentioned, that literally criticizes them all the time. All the time. And it even starts when they are children.
And we're going to talk about that later.
Right. It incessantly tells them what they do wrong and never gives them an attaboy. Because they don't see things objectively, they believe the critic, and they believe that anything they've achieved is really because that inner critic just nagged them to do it right. So they don't really give themselves enough credit. They see the critic as a friend, and it's absolutely not, because they always see the negative or what's wrong. They lean into the critic. So if ones are criticized by other people, like don't criticize ones. Because they don't take it well. They're constantly being criticized themselves by that inner critic. So it's this voice that like nobody else hears, but they constantly hear it. When they criticize other people, they think they're being helpful because they just think, don't they want to know how to do things better? Like, I'm just going to help them.
Or can't they see the obvious?
Can't they see? Right, right. But sometimes they can be perceived as being harsh or overly critical. But they have this intentionality of being softer with other people than their inner critic really is even with them. So it's a relationship. So in a relationship with a one, there are always three voices. There's both people and then the inner critic. And it's important not to embarrass them in public. You can't negate what they share. Criticism is how ones love us. When ones offer that, they're offering it from the right place. Ones are constantly aware of what's wrong around us, and they are trying to present with everything that's happening. You can never change how you see, but you can change what you do with how you see. So hearing that, Marcus, let's start with you. Did that sound
accurate?
Very accurate.
Okay.
He says.
Okay.
Yeah, very accurate.
Emily's shaking her head too. She's like, yes.
Yeah, that inner critic that never stops. Jason and I were talking about it before we started recording, and it is incessant.
Right.
I'm surprised when I hear that other people don't have that voice, or like they can't look around a room and see everything that could immediately be better about it, or your outfit or whatever it is. It's there all the time.
All the time. What about you, Emily?
Yeah, I think you just constantly think, okay, well, I could have done this differently. I could have done this better. Like okay, well, that's not quite good enough. Or like you said, look around the room and be like, ooh, that could have been a little better. Or and like, I probably could have done that better. Should I go help them? Should I go fix it? Like, just
right.
Or like, oh, I didn't clean up this right, or I didn't do this with my kids as perfectly as I could have. So yeah, the constant,
right.
I could have done something better.
Right. And so I'm a 9 and I wing 1 primarily, but I take on some of those perfectionistic tendencies, but I don't have that inner critic. I think only the 1s, even 2s that wing to a 1, that critic is the distinct difference. I think that only 1s have. None of the other numbers have that.
Right. So does that play a role in like what you all do like for a living? Like what introduce yourself to everyone and kind of tell us a little bit about what you do, Emily.
Okay, so I'm in Florida and I'm a mom of 3. So I have 3 kids, 5 and under, and I'm married to a 5. So that gets interesting. Yes, sure. So we've been married 10 years, and I went to school to be a teacher. So I have a master's degree in reading, and then an education background as well. So I taught before I had kids. I did some private tutoring, and now I'm home with our kiddos, and I help my husband we run a few businesses in Orlando. So I kind of help him keep everything kind of rolling.
And you are the perfect person for that job if you're 1.
Yeah.
Good to have you. Good to have you
excited to be
talking to us about your oneness today.
Right.
Marcus, what about you?
So I'm sort of a jack of all trades and do a number of different things.
You are.
Thank you. That's so nice to be a part. So my primary vocation for a long time has been teaching dance, and I think that's worked out really well in terms of the inner critic. My students might not think so. I mean, I try to be like very encouraging, but I'm usually focused on like, what's the detail that's going to take this, like bring it up a notch and make it better. Like, I'm glad you're having fun, but it looks terrible. So we need to
work on this technique.
Yeah. And then lately I've been doing some interior design work, and that's perfect because I can go in and say, like,
that would fit a 1 really well.
Yeah.
You can be like, take that picture down.
That's right.
Get that picture off the wall.
Right. Yeah. That would fit you well.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I asked this question, and we always love this. This is one of our favorite questions. So tell us you're a 1 without telling us you're a 1.
Emily, look, Emily's already laughing.
Yes.
Oh, I can just go like this.
Okay, so I do have to comment on that, Emily. You knew that I was going to. Both of our Enneagram ones have printouts.
Have notes.
This is the only group so far that has had notes. Like some have had mental notes and maybe mentally prepared. No, nobody liked the 1s.
No,
they are ready to go.
That's a 1.
Okay, so you want to start us off, Emily? Tell us you're a 1 without telling us you're 1.
Okay, so my husband tells me that I'm very justice and very much ethical, like right, wrong, no gray area. So yeah, that's what he likes to say. And I have super high standards for myself, and oftentimes I try to hold everybody else around me to those very incredibly high standards, and I get frustrated when they don't meet the standards that they're obviously never going to meet because it's in my head.
That's great.
Yes.
That is great.
That's a 1, right?
I'm a perfectionist. I'm a type A personality. Everything has a spot and everything needs to go according to plan.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. What about you?
I feel like I'm looking in a mirror. This is fantastic. So talking about the high standards, right and wrong, that's my example is along those lines too. Like recently I was talking to my partner about, I don't know, like we were watching TV or something, and somehow the topic of stealing came up, and he said, you've probably never stolen anything in your life. Like that's a normal thing to do, I guess. But I said, well, I did download music from Napster illegally in the 90s. He said, you probably still haven't forgiven yourself. And I was like, I haven't. Like, I still think about it. So it is hard to, that right and wrong thing is constant.
It is constant. And like she said, there's no gray area, none at all. No. Because I mean, like, 9s can justify, like Napster, 90s. But like 1s are like, no, it's wrong then, it's wrong now.
That's right.
And 3s are like, if nobody catches me and it makes me look good, then it's there's always a there's always a why. There's always a why.
So tell us a little about, like, when you learned you were a 1, what was that like? So sometimes for some of the numbers, like when they learn, oh, there's other people like this is, especially with this internal critic, like, did it help? Did it give you some peace? Did it make you neurotic? What was it like? Go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, I think it is comforting to sort of see, like, examples, like even in this conversation today, it's like, oh, there are other people out there, because so many people don't, like, we all kind of think differently, but it's nice to sort of find your tribe. And I think it takes sort of some of the pressure off. Like, I've heard other people say, like, this is the way that you were made. Like, you're supposed to be like this. It's not like something's wrong with you. And I think that's one of our core fears is like, nothing's ever good enough. I'm not good enough. And so to hear that, like, actually, this is the way it's supposed to be, it is comforting.
Yeah, I didn't actually want to take it at first. Like, I was like, no, I'm not, I don't need somebody to tell me what I'm like, no. And then one of my friends was like, I really think, like, I'm not going to tell you what you are, but I really think you need to take this. So I took it. And as I was taking it and I got the results and I read it and I was like, ooh, yeah. Oh, hit the nail on the head. That's me. And so, but I was talking to her about it and she was like, you know, it's just, it helps you understand how you come across to people and helps me understand, like, how to relate in certain situations. So, like, because I'm a 1, all those traits aren't bad. It just helps me to understand how to relate in different situations, understand my own personality, and understand how I come across to people, I think is a big eye opener for me.
Right.
It absolutely is, Emily. And I'll tell you a very quick story about my Enneagram wife, who is a 1. So I was cleaning some tennis shoes one time because it's important that they look white. And right, because I'm an Enneagram 3. So our house cleaner was coming on the next day, which to me is like, that's what a house cleaner is there to do, like clean, right? Okay. So okay. I know where I'm going. Okay. So I put because I know my wife is, you know, has a lot of 1 in her. So I put a towel out, like an old towel. I got an old towel and I was like, you know, scrubbing using the eraser and everything. Okay. And spraying, maybe doing a little chemical stuff too, you know, spraying or whatever. Okay. So, but I was finished with them, but I needed them to dry properly. So I left them there on the counter. They're both cringing. So the next morning, she's like, I could tell she was frustrated with me. I was like, what? Well, it's because I had left them on the counter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, why would you?
I know, see? And so,
you?
And so I'm like, oh gosh, okay, maybe I wasn't supposed to leave them on the counter. Okay, duly noted. Don't clean your tennis shoes the night before the cleaner's coming.
I clean before my cleaning ladies come.
So my wife too, she picks up the entire house.
Matt's like, my husband is mad. He's like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I gotta clean up before the cleaning ladies get here. And he's like, that's why we pay them. And I'm like, no, it's gotta be like, they've got to see it organized.
So then they can deep clean it the way that I want it to look.
Yeah, and then I come home and I'm like looking around.
Did you hear this?
Marcus just said he couldn't imagine
hiring someone to clean. I don't think they do a good enough job.
So Shelly has a hard time. I
have a hard time with it. They never do as good as I think they should, but
yeah.
That's interesting. Shelly has a hard time with paying because it's something that her and I could do.
Right.
Does that resonate with you?
It does.
Like, she has a hard time justifying that money because it's like, that's something we could do.
Yeah.
Especially if it's just a 7 and like you expect a 10.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Thankfully, we have a good house cleaning lady. But
yeah, because ones are always going to want 11, actually.
Yeah.
10.
Is that too much to ask?
Yeah.
Gloves on when I get home, though. I don't like go across the house with my white gloves on.
Right.
But
So you examine and
no, I don't.
Oh, she doesn't.
No,
okay.
she
That's
doesn't.
good. That's healthy.
Good
So
job.
what do you guys like about being a 1?
I do think that detail oriented, that it's a nice quality to have. It's a nice quality because I think details do make a difference, whether you're like decorating a room or putting a dance together or whatever it happens to be. If you're planning a party or a wedding or anything else, like the details are going to get attended to, and you're going to end up with a really nice product. It's going to be stressful, but and you might not think it was good enough, but everybody else is going to say like, oh, that's fantastic. And so I think it's like a superpower almost.
It is.
You know?
Yeah,
It
it
is.
is. It is.
It is. There's a saying that says the devil's in the details, and I don't
Right.
agree with that at all. Because I think the devil's when you don't have details. You know what I mean? Like that's when the devil shows up. It's like when you don't have details. So like I think that is totally false. But I think the devil can be in the details if you take it a little too far. But gosh, what would we do without detailed people in our lives? I mean, what would we do without them?
Look at Emily's face. I don't know.
She's thinking about her husband probably in the businesses that he runs. She's like, what would he do if I wasn't?
Said that multiple times. I'm like, what would you do if I didn't do this? And he's like, oh. I have a story for that later on another question that
Okay. Okay. Well, what do you love, Emily, about being a 1?
So I think I love that I know that people can count on me. So like one of my best friends from college, I was in her wedding and her mom was like, I want you to hold this special necklace from her grandmother because you're responsible, Emily. And so our entire time in college, that was my nickname from her. And so like we talk with our kids about making like their yes be yes and their no be no when they're like committing to something. And so I think for me, it's like, if I tell you I'm going to do something, like it's going to be done and it's going to be done correctly. And it's probably going to be done early.
It's like a badge of honor.
It is. It's
like a badge of honor you wore. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, when she called you responsible Emily, you're like,
yes,
you're dang right I am. Yeah.
So tell us a little about what is it like being a 1? Like we talked a little about that internal critic, and I don't know if that's like the primary thing, but you guys tell us, what's it like being a 1? Emily, you go first.
Okay, so I think sometimes it can be a little exhausting because you're constantly trying to like hit these levels of perfection. And so like you're super hard on yourself, you're hard on people around you because you want them to all meet your inner critic basically. You need to get to like the same level. And so I think that's really hard. I think it's hard not having like a gray area. So you really do want everything to be like black and white. And it's hard because you judge others without even realizing that you're doing it a lot of times. So like you're innerly judging like how they've responded to situations or how like, oh, well, maybe we should have done it this time. And you speak your mind. And so like it's a little bit challenging in that way to kind of push back that critic and that judgmental mentality that sometimes comes to the front to be like, no, there can be gray areas. Not everyone has to be up at this level.
I've heard the word exhausted used in every interview that we've done so far.
I think that's right. Yeah.
I've heard the word exhausted. So it's interesting that you're all, it can be
tired.
We're all tired.
We're all tired.
But we're all tired for different reasons. Isn't that funny? It's the why. Yeah. It's the why. Yeah. Marcus, what about you?
Well, I guess along those same lines of being exhausted.
Let's talk about exhaustion.
Like one of the statements that I've read about once before is like, I don't feel comfortable when I try to relax because there's always like things to do
that could be done.
There's something that could be done. There's always something that could be done, something that could be a little bit better, something that could be tweaked. And one of the things that Deborah sent me about once was that like we really do well, like if we're truly on vacation and then it's like we get to relax. And I noticed that when I go out of town, I'm more creative. I wear different clothes. I am a little more like bold in approaching strangers and that sort of thing. But I think it's because like you almost can't do anything. Like you leave your normal environment where there's all this stuff to do and there's not when you're out of
But
town.
you mentioned going on vacation. Okay, so do you have to like mentally prepare yourself up to that point, or can you just turn it off? Like, you're going on vacation and you can just turn it off on day one, or does it take you a few days into your vacation?
I think it takes a while because everything's like you've got to pack right. There's a list of things to do. There are directions to print out. It's like, and you have to get there and like make sure nothing goes wrong or whatever.
You have to be the one responsible for everyone else who didn't think of getting the concert tickets. Who didn't think of, it's like, we get there, like, okay, so here's me. We pull up to the concert and I'm like, hey, like this would be me. It's like, oh crap, do we have tickets to this? Are we supposed to print them out? Like, I didn't know.
Yeah, we would
tickets and my wife is like she, like she lifts them up like in an envelope, like she's done all this, ahead of time.
So fun story about that with the one. So my sister and I are complete opposite. I actually don't even know what Enneagram she is, but maybe you guys could sound out and figure it out. But, we were on a plane to Ohio and we get on the plane. I have everybody's tickets. We're going to a wedding. And we sit down. My sister looks at me and she goes, "Where are we going again?" I was like, oh my gosh. We're going to Cleveland. And she was like, "Oh, what state are we going to?" I was like, "Ohio." We're going to Ohio. Here's your ticket. We're going to a wedding. Do you have a dress?
Right. Is there anything else I need to do for you to prepare you for this wedding? That's funny.
Yeah. So speak a little bit to the inner critic, like whose voice is it? Like, is it?
Yeah, I'm very interested in this. You kind of have this though. I mean, you can kind of, because you went kind of wing to your one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very interested in this.
So, I got confused on that question. So sometimes I wonder about that, like a lot of like self-helpy things that I've done or whatever, or they say like, is this your dad's voice or is this your grandpa's voice? And I think that definitely, like with the men in my family, there always has been this streak of like, here's how it could have been better. Like my dad, like up into his 60s, like he'd come outside and say like, the lawn's really nice, but like if you could edge this a little bit better, that'd be, it's like, it's like, I'm going to ask you to do something, but then I'm going to tell you how you didn't do it quite right or whatever.
Yes.
So sometimes I've just attributed it to like, oh, well, this is a family thing. But as I've gotten older, then I kind of think, well, maybe that's just like, maybe we're geared that way. Maybe they were ones too.
Yeah, that's possible. Emily, what about you?
I had a hard time with this question too. I actually left it blank on my so I was thinking about it before we came on and I was like, I think the voice is more of like my own expectations of myself.
Right.
Like not really anything else, but like that I'm so much like I have high expectations for myself. I'm not going to fail. I'm going to do everything in my power not to. And so I think that's the voice that I'm constantly fighting. I'm not good enough. Okay, but I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to reach this in order to be successful. And so I think that's.
Yeah, because the childhood message for ones is it's not okay to make mistakes. Like it's not an option.
Is it?
Is it? Was there a question mark behind that? Is it question mark?
It is
funny.
Actually.
Yeah.
My mom's a one too. So we're both ones.
Right. That's interesting. So do you filter out when you say things or what you say, or like when you talking to other people, knowing that you can come across as critical? Do you try to soften it or filter? How do you guys do that in just your relationships with siblings or significant others, kids, whatever?
So I've actually grown a lot in this area. So I used to struggle a lot with a filter, especially in my like early 20s, late 20s. And I think now I've kind of figured out who I need to have certain filters around. So I have my professional filter. So I know like what I can say in the office or what I can say in professional settings. I have certain friends that I have certain filters on, so I don't hurt feelings. I'm not judging. And then you have that close circle of friends where you really feel like you can kind of voice exactly what's going on, what's in your head, how you feel, and you don't feel like you're going to be judged. So I think it's just, and you have certain people you can be authentic around and certain people you need to have certain filters for. So I used to not have a filter for anybody. And then I kind of learned like how to
Yeah.
have certain filters around certain people so that I'm saying appropriate things and not just everything that's on my face and out of my mouth. So it's.
And does your face often say what?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would be terrible in Vegas. Like, I have zero poker face. Like my friends always say, you don't have to say anything. Like it's funny.
That's funny.
Oh,
I'm a competitive cheerleader, so I can like do the facials and like, so I've got the emotions. So
that's great.
That resonates so much with me, like everything she was just saying. Maybe the difference is that I had an experience, Jason and I were talking about it earlier, in high school where I did not filter myself, and it didn't go very well. Did not go very well at all. So as an adult, like I filter a lot, and I think about like, is this going to be taken the wrong way? Is this the right thing to say? But some of my dance students might say that my face, like if I say, that was really good, let's do it again. And I've had people say, well, we know that's code for it was awful.
Because the face says it all.
Yeah, so I don't know that the face always has a filter.
That's funny.
Interesting.
So how does the core fear rear its head in your life?
Oh, okay. I could, yeah. So my husband actually gave me an example today when I was talking all this over with him, and he's like, oh, you should talk about when we first started our office. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So we own a service business, and when we first started, like, we have amazing employees, like they're incredible, couldn't ask for better ones. And, but it's really hard as a one, letting other people you hired run your baby. And so I was in the office every day when we first started, and then we had our third baby, and I had to kind of like let go of the reins and let other people kind of handle it. And it was really stressful for me for about a year. And I just remember constantly wanting my hands on everything, wanting to be a part of everything, and like just not getting really upset when the tiniest ball was dropped. And as my husband says, I'm not able to like let the rough in drag and like let people figure it out. I was like, no, it has to be perfect, like right now. So letting the team have like an opportunity to improve was just not an option for me at the time. Like they weren't going to make a mistake and learn from it. Like the mistake just wasn't going to happen. So I've grown a lot in that. I've now like, I trust them, they can do it. And like, I let them fail and not jump on something when they're trying to learn, not necessarily fail, but helping them learn instead of me being like, no, like, let's just not fail. Let's just not. So
funny.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Marcus, tell us a little about the core fear and how that fits for you.
I think that like that idea of not being good enough, whether it's like I'm not good enough, the thing I did isn't good enough. Like if I put paint on the wall and there's like a little thing in the corner that nobody would ever see because there's a piece of furniture there, like I know that it's not just the right thing. So in that sense, it's really tiring. But I think that like what Emily was talking about and saying like trusting other people to help out and do things, there is, as I've learned and grown more, I think there's a lot of relief in the idea that it's like, oh, other people can do things and it works out just fine. Or like people come in and dance and like I see, oh, well, this isn't perfect, but you know what, like they're having a good time and they're probably having more fun than I am. So I think that like it's almost like a surprise, like, oh wow, like life works even without all the little details
without being perfect. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's hard to
interesting.
admit.
Yeah.
But it does take a lot of pressure off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I want to kind of do is pivot a little bit and talk. So we know we've talked in earlier episodes about the paths we take when we're in growth and in stress. So for ones, their growth when they're super healthy and it's all fluid too. Like, I mean, you can have a really great morning and be doing really well and looking more to the healthy side of 7, and then afternoon something happened and you're back down. But so Suzanne Stabile kind of describes it. So the growth track for a 1 is 7. So in security, they take on the healthy attributes of a 7. So she describes it as generally that that only happens when they're away from home. It's like you kind of alluded to. So when they go on a real vacation, they move to a 7 and they can feel more free because there's not so much for them to have to do on vacation. There's not so much from the voice that's kind of criticizing, judging, pushing them. And so you've got to have that. Otherwise, you just don't know that there's this place inside of you that gives you a chance to be comfortable. One thing she does when she's counseling is she tells young parents and young people, really everybody, I understand that to go away for 24 hours or even a shorter time, there's sacrifices have to be made. There's a commitment, there's costs, and everything, but there's just so much that can be benefited by doing that, really for all numbers, but really for a 1. And so to just kind of get in touch with that 1, this makes me think of Frasier. I used to love Frasier. And there was like Island Niles. I mean, do you remember when Niles would go on vacation and just like, woo, go? It kind of makes me think of that. But what are you guys' thoughts about that? Like when you're on vacation, are you able to kind of let that 7 have a good time without that inner critic nagging you?
Yeah, no, I actually loved this because when our babies were really young, we would be able to do like a staycation maybe. So like we're in Orlando, so there's hotels everywhere, resorts everywhere. Right. So we would just pick one and we would get 24 hours kid free. And I just remember being like, oh, here's my books or here's my podcast. And I'm just going to lay by this pool and just not move. And so I think it takes me a couple hours to unwind, but then I'm just like, here's my book, like I'm ready to go. Or if we go out of town, it's like the drive there or the plane ride there, like I can unwind, get into the vacation mode, and then just kind of not have to worry about dishes and bath and packing lunches and making dinners and all of that, and just really take a breather.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Marcus?
Absolutely.
No hesitation there.
I love Vacation Marcus. I wear like shorts that are shorter. I wear different earrings, and I'm like real curious about like, well, let's find a restaurant. Let's go for a hike. Let's like go to a local bookstore or whatever. But I don't do that. I have never been hiking in Arkansas because there's just too much to do here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Even though there are plenty of trails and things to see. Like I have to get out of town. And then when I always think I'm going to be this person when I get back, and I get back and I like put my ugly shorts back on and my regular earrings or whatever. And I just can't find it just feels different. Yeah. Too much pressure.
Mm-hmm. So what is it like for you guys when you're unhealthy? How do you know that you're kind of unhealthy? What do you do to get back on track? What's that like for our 1s?
So I think when I get unhealthy, I need everything to be absolutely perfect. So like everything, I think a good example is like what you're saying with the house. So we have like 3 very small children, and like their job is to make a mess. That is what they do. Early childhood, they make a mess, but like we're trying to teach them like how to clean it up. So we're trying to teach them like where things go, how things clean. And the 1 in me wants to go behind them and fix everything that they're doing. But I realized that if I'm telling them by doing that, I'm telling them that what they're doing is not good enough. So I'm already like projecting onto them my like perfectionist, high standard mentality by not just letting them do
Which
it.
Is probably what happened to you, Emily, when you were a child. No, I'm kidding. It happened to all of us.
My mom's gonna listen to this and be like, "Oh my gosh,
what have I done?"
Mom, you didn't do anything.
Replicated my oneness in my daughter. No,
I think it's showing my kids that like everything doesn't have to be perfect the first time, but when I'm unhealthy, everything has to be perfect. I'll look at my family and be like, this place is a disaster. Like, we gotta go. And then my husband's like, it's not a disaster. Like, there's one thing that's not in the right spot.
The blanket is not fully folded on the couch.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. This pillow behind me is not in the right spot.
Right. Exactly.
But my 3-year-old cleaned up all the pillows like we asked him to. So they are where.
Yeah.
So it's just like when I'm unhealthy, I'm not able to release that and not able to allow my kids to like make mistakes and learn and do that. I'm like wanting them to do everything perfectly the first time. So
What about you, Marcus?
I agree with all of that. I agree with all of that.
Ditto. What she said.
Well, I think when I'm in an unhealthy place, like I'm really self-critical and like it almost feels like there's no way out. It's like black or white. And so if I'm in a bad place, it's black. So, and like, I don't know, a few years ago, I was going through some health challenges, like with the knee surgery and had a lot of sinus issues and all this kind of stuff. And it, like, whenever my body doesn't feel well, it brings up those issues of like my health isn't good enough, like my finances aren't good enough to pay for this thing that I need to fix it or whatever. Like, it's very much like it does feel like no way out. And like, where I go is, if I knew more, I wouldn't be experiencing this problem.
Right.
And so there's not a lot of grace.
Not right.
Okay, so can we talk about that for a minute? Because worry, constant worry or angst, or is that something that you would say is kind of something that you're constantly, your mind is, I mean, is that what you would call it? Worry, or you're constantly like trying to calculate what could go wrong?
No,
maybe?
that's a sixth thing.
I know, but I see this in some of the ones that I have, that they're thinking, they're such planners and perfectionists that they often are thinking about both scenarios. Like,
right.
Is that something that is common for a 1?
Yeah.
Because I know that's really dominant in a 6, but I've seen this in some of the friends that I have that I know 100% are 1s, but I'll see them kind of be devil's advocate, like kind of always see the, I don't know, kind of the, like, well, what if this were to happen? We gotta have a plan for that.
Right. I don't really identify with that idea of worry or angst, but I really identify with being prepared. Like sort of like what could go wrong, like when you go on a trip or whatever, like got to make sure you have a tire jack and a screwdriver and whatever.
Oh,
like,
so it's about prepping beforehand.
Like being prepared. Like, what if something, it's sort of, at least for me, like, what if something goes wrong, like not wanting to miss a detail.
Now, something we haven't really talked about, Deb, is the aspect that is also common in 8s. It's that justice.
Right.
That's a little piece that's kind of common in both of those numbers.
Right.
You mentioned it earlier, Emily, and I would like to hear about that. We talked a ton about the inner critic, but we haven't really talked about, like, so I heard a story about an Enneagram 1 that, it's either right or wrong, but I think this is what confused me. A 1 went to the movie theater, and the 1 did not have, wanted their own candy to put in their popcorn. And to me, it's like, okay, you can't take candy in. If you're going to be like right or wrong, you can't take your own candy in. Okay. But the 1 was like, I would totally take my candy in because they don't sell the kind of candy that I like.
Oh.
Well, and they charge way too much, and that's not right. See?
Okay. So it's like, I don't get that. It's like, okay, it's either right or wrong, right? But you guys are like, well, it's wrong because they overcharge it, and I can get it at the Dollar Tree for $1.
You justify. Well, there's your 9 wing right there.
There you go. 9 wing.
Interesting. Yeah. So does it resonate with you?
Yeah, I'm very much though, like black and white. Like justice, like you did me wrong. So like.
Are you grudge holders? Are you grudge holders?
I try not. I really, it's too heavy to bear. Like, I don't want to, there's too much, like life's too short. I don't want to worry about that. Cause I am a high anxiety, like worry person. So like, I'm more of like you're saying, like, I will say, okay, it could be this scenario or this scenario. What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? And like, let's plan for both of those. And so I think I'm not a grudge holder, but I'm definitely a like justice. You did it wrong, then you were wrong, or you were right. And to me, I have a hard time seeing the like middle gray of it.
So 1 stand up for people that don't stand up for themselves, even when you don't have a dog in the hunt. Is that right?
Oh, I totally do that.
Like you feel obligated to jump in and
like for my people, like I'm like a mama bear for my people. Like if you're in my tribe and you're in my circle, like I will fight for you to the death. So that's kind of like, that's my husband always tells me, you don't need it.
Oh yeah.
And the 8, 9s, and 1s are in the gut triad.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah, my husband will tell me, he's like, you don't need to fight my battles. I'm like, oh, I do. Like,
yes. Yeah, Deb is right. 8, 9s, and 1s are in the gut triad. And the whole premise of the gut triad is that they just weirdly know. Like they just weirdly know.
And a 5 may not, because he's so in the head, you gotta do it for him.
And I'm in the heart triad, so I'm just like, let's cry. I mean, let's cry about it. I would feel better if we cried.
So I'm going to read a little more from Suzanne. She talks about 1s going to 4 in stress. What happens with that is if they're discouraged, then they are more discouraged. So if they feel like they aren't getting anywhere, then they are more mindful that they aren't getting anywhere. Place in 4 where creativity arises. So the thing about that is like, and one thing I talk about too when I'm working with parents with kids, like you've got to have like 15 minutes of boredom before creativity kicks in. And that's kind of what she's talking about here. Like you've got to have a little bit of time where you're not getting anywhere before that 4 creativity kicks in. So when 1s who are stressed go to 4, they find creative solutions to problems they're struggling with. And that's super valuable because the critic doesn't leave room for creativity. It's that black or white. So without the move to 4, creative responses to life are just too hard to get to. So going to your stress number is a really good thing. And it's just how healthy or unhealthy you're going. You can't take care of yourself with the number you go to in stress. Are you going to the healthy side of 4 or the unhealthy side of 4? The same is true for your security number. Are you going to the healthy side or the unhealthy side? And you learn. And so that's where it's kind of important. A lot of times people will say, I'm a whatever number and I've learned about that. But you've got to learn about the other numbers because you use them in health and in stress for your paths. And then like we just talked about the triads being in the gut triad. So it's kind of important to know about that. But what are your thoughts on that about going to a 4 and tapping into your creativity?
Sure. So at the end of that, because I know you were sent us a little bit of that snippet, and it said, well, that's just how I am. Like not just staying with just how I am. And I've literally said those exact words. Like, well, this just is how I am. Like, just take me or leave me. Like, this is how I am. And so I think once I get past that point, I'm able to let that creativity come. And like, once I'm able to get through those certain dynamics, I'm able to turn into like a problem solver. And I'm like, okay, well, how can we fix this? How can we come up with a creative solution? How can I like not dwell in my emotions? Like I'm not an emotion dweller. Let's get through the wall and then let's solve the problem and let's move on. And so I can get to that creative side once I'm like past this is just who I am. Like I'm a 1, here I am, but I've got to get like past my stubbornness and my like perfectionism to be like, okay, where's the problem and how can we solve it?
And didn't you say that's really good, Emily? I was talking to Marcus earlier and he had mentioned that he had some friends that maybe thought he was a 4. So
I thought you were a 4.
So maybe
that's what they,
I
so
thought
maybe
you were a 4
that has a lot to do with that,
interior
Emily.
design, dance, all this is so creative.
Right. And I think that I was telling Jason when I first started, because my friends had said you're a 4, then when I read some Enneagram books, then I really was sort of like looking for myself in that number. And it wasn't until I heard like a really nice description of a 1 that like I was like, oh, that feels really true inside. But I do think like one of the things I think about 4s is they've got this thing about authenticity. And I think even like if I'm in a not great place, if I can be authentic about it and say like, I'm really struggling, or I'm being really hard on myself, or I just don't know what to do, or I don't think I'm good enough, or like if I can just bring truth to the matter, then that's where I can sort of get to that creative place where it's like, well, we can find our way out of this or look at it differently.
Yes.
So does dancing and the things that you do, because you're a very good swing dancer. Does that take you to a place of creativity?
I think so. And really one of the nice things about dancing, like when I am being creative and not being critical, then I that's really when I feel like the most free, the most creative. If I can sort of focus on like being in the moment and creating something, because I've danced before, like where I've been criticizing myself the whole time. Not fun at all.
No.
But then there's other times
imagine.
where I'm really enjoying the person I'm with and like loving the music and letting it kind of come through me in that manner. And there's no feeling like it. So it's just whether or not that, I guess, that inner critic goes along for the ride.
I know, like, here's my story with Marcus. So my 8 husband and I went to Marcus for some dance lessons before Katie got married.
Oh, fun.
It was fun. It was really fun. So my 8 husband tells Marcus, like, just give us a routine. Like, I want to know exactly.
So many times.
Yeah, he told us that when we were doing it. Like, he goes, I hear that. He totally validated him. But I'm not going to give you that.
Oh, wow.
He's like, I'm going to give you these.
What you think.
I'm going to give you these steps and you just go with it. Like let those creative juice. And my 8 husband was like, no.
I need the cookie cutter template.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a student right now who's been saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I just want a routine.
Right.
And the challenge is like, you've got to learn how to dance, which by definition is making decisions in the moment.
Right.
And then you have to learn a routine.
Right.
So like my advice is usually let's just learn how to dance.
Yeah.
Because it's not a prescribed.
Right.
It's like driving. You wouldn't say like, well, you're going to go 2 blocks and you're going to turn left and then you're going to, because what if there's a car in the way or there's been an accident? Like
Right.
that's, yeah.
I know.
Yes.
It's not a prescribed thing.
Right.
And for people that need a prescribed thing, it's
As a one
frustrating.
though, what I would think like ones want things a certain way all the time, but you just want.
The perfectionism
That's
comes
what I was
in
wondering.
like
Okay.
in the technique, like how are you holding your body? Are you on beat with the music?
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
all these little things
Yeah.
that kind of come together to make the dance work.
Right.
But the dance itself should be a spontaneous creative act.
Right. So there's 9 types and 8 of us aren't ones. So how do others love you best? What do you need?
So yeah, this was a good one for me to think about. But I think the best way that people love me is just by showing up when they say they will. So like honoring their commitments. I'm huge on like loyalty and commitment. So follow through with what you're going to do and just do it. And so my inner circle knows that I need a plan. I like to lead it and they're okay with me doing that. And then they also know how to like bring me back down with tough love when I'm getting too one or too much. when I'm being too much, they're like, eh. So yeah, but like, I'm sure, you know, the love languages, like, so mine is quality time. So my biggest thing is like quality time. So like when my husband and we had like a whirlwind romance at 21 and got engaged, got married, all of that. And I remember telling him like, don't ever buy me jewelry. Like, I don't want jewelry. I just like want your time. Like, I want you to show up when you say you will, do what you say you're going to do, and just be a man of your word. And like, to this day, I still wear an Amazon wedding band because I'm just like, I just want you and your commitment and just a weekly time with people I love. So that's.
Yeah. My wife doesn't ever want me to buy her flowers and I can never understand that. She's like, it's a waste of money. Like,
I love flowers. I'm okay with flowers, but jewelry, like, don't buy me jewelry.
Kind of to the same thing that you're saying about jewelry. Anyway, that's interesting.
I really resonate with that. Like, do what you say you're going to do. Like, integrity is a big thing in my book, because it's like, and like, I'm paying attention to the details and I'm getting stuff done. And I think for me, like, my love language, one of the big ones is words of affirmation. So I just like acknowledgement, you know, like if I redecorate a room or put together a dance routine, like I want somebody to say like,
you did a great job.
Was so like very thoughtful to put that there instead of there, and look the way that this works and everything. That goes a long way for me, like just being, I guess, acknowledged for like the gift that I bring, or the, you know, what I bring to the table.
Well, we got our last question, which we ask all the numbers.
This is so fun. Because I learned something every time we ask this question.
I know. I'll let you ask it then.
Okay. So what is it that as a one that you want the world to know about you or about ones?
It wasn't on my paper. It wasn't.
I know, and we kind of do that on purpose. So we like to phrase it. Okay, what would you like the world to know about ones that is, I would say, special or positive, or what do you bring to the world that no other number is bringing?
I would say we're incredibly loyal, and we have a high integrity, and we are probably the most dependable people out there. So we will be there for you.
You can count on a one.
You can count on us. If we tell you we're gonna be there, we will be there, whether we're in a flaming car or we're walking, but we will be there.
I like that. I like that.
That is very true. Where my mind went with that was I would want people to know that details matter, or that details really do make a difference. Like sometimes it may seem like a small thing, whether you're putting a routine together or an outfit or decorating your room or whatever. But everything, even small things, have an effect. Maybe even if you feel like a small person, you have an effect on other people. And sometimes it's just a little act that can turn out to be a big thing. So that's what I would want the world to know.
It's good.
It is good.
This has been good today.
I know.
Hasn't it?
I know.
Creeping into each number, and
I know. And
it's like we're peeking through mini blinds.
I know.
Like, tell us about you, ones.
I know. Alice Kravitz. I love that. I love that.
Tell us about you.
I know. We've
That's
learned
great.
a lot about ones.
We have learned a lot.
Yeah.
about
So
ones.
ones have this, like she said, high integrity, attention to detail, super important. I would think too, like I've known a couple of ones that really, as clients, that they always felt people kind of belittled their need to pay attention to detail or to check all the boxes.
Like it was a weakness.
Yeah, like it was a weakness.
It's really a superpower.
It really, really is a superpower.
It's a superpower.
Yes.
Because what if we didn't have people that paid attention to deals, like office managers and
yeah.
I mean, like they wouldn't be able to run the clinic or
right.
or I'm thinking of different jobs that would
you
need.
Want people that are gonna like Emily talked about with her job too, like making sure everything gets done, going on a vacation, like Marcus talked about, you got to make sure you get your tickets. And
our CFO at the office, he's a one.
Yeah.
And I literally say that to him all the time. I'm really thankful you're a one.
Yeah.
Because I hate Excel spreadsheets. And you put everything in an Excel spreadsheet and make it make sense.
Yeah.
And he knows where every dollar is accounted for.
Right.
And I'm just like, thank God we don't have a 7 in our CFO position. You know what I mean? He'd be like, oh yeah, just go get you something at the store.
I know. Like when I go to the doctor, I want to go, what number are you? Because I would like a one. I would like a doctor that's a one.
Yeah.
They're not going to miss anything. They're
going
to,
or even a nurse.
Or even
if I'm in the hospital, if I'm in ICU, give me the one nurse.
That's right.
My mom's a nurse, and she's an incredible nurse, and she's been a nurse for like something years, and it's like she is on who you want.
Right.
How fun. It has been so fun getting to know you, Emily, and Marcus, reacquainting with you. I've known Marcus for a long time, and so this has been great.
Yep. Well, thank you guys for letting us peep into your oneness and sharing with us and the world, whoever might be watching. So thank you for joining us. Thank you. I hope you learned something about ones. And the next time we see you, we'll be meeting with our twos. So have a great week. If this content has been helpful to you, I'd appreciate it if you would please rate the podcast, post it, and share it on social media. And also post a review. If you'd like to get in contact with me, my phone is 479-561-7600, or email Dr. Deborah at anchoredhopecounseling.net or Dr. Deborah at drdebfordoctors.com. Our website at www.anchoredhopecounseling.net has some useful information, and you can also reach out to me through the website. Remember, you are enough just the way you are, and you are loved.